You can say bippity bop boo
Whatever the Lord
boo.
leads.
Okay.
Oh, Lordy.
Hey, it's bibbidi bop boo boo. I can't even do that. But hey, it's Stoy, and you're listening to the PWNA, the mixtape era. Let's go.
If you've got a gay friend and you want to invite them to church, you know that something might be said that may not only offend them, but also crush them. Is that the point? You know, for the church, I'm like, is this the goal that you're trying to accomplish? I go back to thinking, like, how would Jesus interact with his child?
The selective sin magnifying glass makes no sense to me. So we're going to exclude gay people, but we're going to have donuts in the foyer and just completely disregard the 60% obese congregation.
I don't think it's one or the other, because I wouldn't want someone to be like that with me. It's like, well, you're like this, but I can't be involved with you. So for me, I take it by like a person by person basis. I found community in church too, and honestly, even when I was struggling with figuring myself out.
I agree. Let's just seek God together. Let's just call it there.
All right, so this one is a tough one here. The scariest and loneliest season in Alex's life causes her to consider suicide. Man. And lots of talk about the many sins churches, they just ignore. Things that are clearly forbidden and warned against in the Bible. And then these same Christians harp on things that are way less clear in that same Bible. And it humbles me to say that the sound quality is truly like a mixtape captured by a tape recorder on this one. Some of you don't even know what the heck I mean by a tape recorder. How long have I been podcasting? Oh, and Jed thinks that sex with robots is really going to be the next big conflict in the church. I can't wait to hear sermons on that one. But first, Stoy, Liz and Hayne wrap up last week's talk with a who out of the host group would you want in the apocalypse?
I demanded, pleaded, called God on promises and was like, you have to show up or like I am done. And he did.
That's something to really think about. What does it mean that the God of the universe loves me?
Are we saying that our God is bigger than their God or what?
Man, you got my mind going crazy right now.
I just think that is evangelical bullshit.
And I don't fit in their box anymore. So feeling rejected from the church makes me feel far away from God.
If I'm living out the love of God, love of the divine, then in some ways we're unoffendable.
It's wrong to marginalize anybody for any reason.
Sometimes we can just have some things about our perspective that's off until we encounter someone who can challenge our thoughts, have conversations with us, and we just continue to grow and evolve.
I'm with you there. Yeah, I like that.
That sounded like womp, 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 womp to Robbie.
I'm a hardcore gospel lover. I do love the gospel. I just think we get it wrong.
Girl, I was so highly medicated, I don't even know if you got to. Oh, I found my people.
I want to talk to everybody because I want to push y'all. I want to push y'all right to the edge. Like anything I feel like you afraid of, I'm like, nah, erase that. Don't be afraid of anything in this world and just go explore it. But I hear a lot of fear in what's her name? Amy. It's so many things I want to talk to her about.
She is such a cool person though, and so polarizing, being an elder at the church, the first one to have your back, and then also be very reserved in the sense that, like, I feel like she's more on the conservative side, but like she said, she totally had my back and got onto this woman who I work with about hounding me. She's somebody who is gay affirming. She is somebody who is an elder at a church, and she does not fit anybody's box. She doesn't, she checks all of the boxes. So she's a very, very cool person to me. And I wish there were more people like her that were still at church. And there might be more people like her. I just don't know them.
They need you. They need you there.
Yeah. No, that's not how this story.
I'm telling you, they need you there.
My dad used to say that people's orthodoxy often doesn't match their orthopraxy. So orthodoxy is what we believe. Orthopraxy is how we live. And that we'll say things, we believe certain ways, but our spirits they're molded in such a way, our hearts are molded in such a way that it doesn't, we don't flesh out a lot of the thoughts that we have.
Your dad was very intelligent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought about that so many times. So how do you experience the fear, though? You're talking about you experience some fear, Stoy.
Me experience
just in terms of wanting to get to know Amy better.
Yeah, I just want to get to know her because when I hear her speak, I hear different things than what is actually being said. So it's something I want to experience with her in conversation. Like when she says, Liz, I had your back, I hear like 4 other things with it. And so I want to have a conversation with her so I can tell her I can hear the underlying stuff too. Just see what comes from her after me telling her what I can hear. And she gets emotional, and I see the whole line of her getting to that point. So it's like, man, I want to say something, but I have to do it one-on-one first before I just put her out there in front of everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel pure to me to do that in a audience.
Yeah. No,
I do like the fact that if he was to put, like when he was texting us and saying like Hayne and Liz and Stoy, I was like, oh, sweet. Like I was excited to talk to both of you, but I also feel like if he said 2 other people, I would have been like, oh, sweet. Like each one of us is very interesting and very kind-hearted. And so I think it's really, really nice to talk to people that are kind-hearted, can push you to think a little bit differently or just encourage you to, see something in a different way, but that have such different stories.
Oh, yeah.
We all do.
Absolutely.
Such different stories. Yeah. I do think that he did a good job, putting a good group of people together.
And those stories are different, but there's places where you see them crossing as well, which is kind of interesting. But I think you just drilled the nail when you said the kindness piece, because I do feel like that just even in the brashness, at times. And actually,
Joey's brashness.
I don't know. Joey's kind of a wimp, don't you think? I mean, just kind of that.
No, he take a side street. He's
all
side
talk.
street.
All talk. He's all talk, and he crosses his legs fully. I mean,
he crosses his legs. He's all talk.
I never seen that, but you should have never told me that. Now
he did it when we were doing the podcast, and I almost made fun of him and said something, and then I got like squirrely, like ADD. I was gonna be like, Joey, why are you crossing your legs like that?
Yeah.
I think I've actually made fun of him about doing that before. Like with the kindness, we're so kind-hearted people, but yet we're also gonna like call each other out. Like I'll
and tease,
call you out just as fast.
And tease pretty hard. I mean, Joey has so much. It's very thick-skinned, so resilient. I mean, just to have the vision to put the team together that he put together, I think just shows a lot of courage on his part. Actually, it was actually earlier today. So we were having a texting conversation a couple of weeks ago about spanking. I don't know if you guys remember that text thread that we had. Were you guys?
I don't think I was in it, but I've heard Amy's all about spanking and
But Ellen
says no.
Oh, she had such really like distinct, thoughts on it, and came out really big, really big out of the gate, pretty bold, and I pushed back. I started to push back a little bit, and we kind of had this thing that went back and forth. And I've met Ellen, and we've my wife and I and kids were out in Seattle this past summer and swung by she and Cole's place and got to hang out and had a really, really cool time with them. And I've known Ellen now for a bit, but I called her today because I just kind of felt like I just want to make sure we're good, because we said some things back and forth that got a little bold, kind of a little pushy here and there. So I called her and was like, hey, just wanted to check in. Make sure. She said, yeah, things are totally cool. She said, things are totally cool.
Who's Ellen? Is Ellen?
Ooh, I'll show you a photograph. I'll probably help that.
She has the glasses. She's the really funny one that always has to do something while we're podcasting, like filing her nails.
Okay. I can't wait to get her one. Oh, man,
she's awesome.
That was really nice of you, Hayne, to call her and check on her.
Yes, it was.
I really care. I care about everybody in the group, but I just wanted to make sure that she and I were good. And she was like, oh, we're totally good. She goes, if if we weren't good,
She don't seem like she can hold a grudge though. I feel like her mind is going a million miles a second.
Oh, it's moving. She's brilliantly smart. Yeah, it's moving.
Yeah, she's got a lot going on, and I love it. I'm like, man, I can't wait to put it on a pause and talk to her, like talk directly to her. Those kind of stuff interests me. My mind be going crazy when I'm listening to the whole group. I'm like, oh, their spirit actually comes out. I'm like, oh, okay, now I see who you are.
Yeah,
and it's like, man, I want to talk to him now. I want to experience all of that. Give me all of that right there.
I think you've just created a segment, Stoy. 101 with Stoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to hear more about Matt's story. Like, I feel like there's so much there that also has been deconstructed. There's so many things. I would love to just listen to him tell his whole story, his thought process, you know, the feelings that he endured through all of it. I can't even imagine. Like, that's a guy that I would definitely like to have a little bit more airtime, because I feel like he's quiet and he's reserved, and if we're not asking, if we're not asking him the questions, he's just kind of chill and just, you know, hangs out. He'll answer, but I want him to definitely share a little bit more. I'm interested to get to know him.
He thinks deeply. I mean, he really. He thinks deeply. He's very well read. I mean, he's really thought that. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So I got to ask you, Stoy, going back to the belief question, because, you know, Matt said 0.
Yeah.
But then he said sometimes a 1. So
he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
He did.
And I was going to.
So is that 10 in your book?
Him.
Is that a 10 in your book?
No. I was going to commend him on the 0, and then he said, but sometimes it's 1. Then I was like, oh, you at a 10. Like,
you catch that, Matt?
I was like, oh, you now you're a 10. So it had a lot of life for me. And then he said, but sometimes I was like, you believe.
All right, Ox. 101 with Stoy, Ox and Stoy. I can't wait to hear this.
There's more to that story, and anytime somebody pay attention and listen to another person, you hear so much things. You and it's like, okay, I'm gonna make this. Soon as God show it to me and I hear it, I'm gonna make it as comfortable as possible for you to continue, because I'm not gonna judge you. I'm gonna make it that comfortable for you to finish telling your story. And y'all know how therapeutic it is to be able to share and to have somebody that's on the other end of sharing that's actually listening and got compassion, and they don't necessarily have to say something back. If you can feel that energy, and it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Especially with people who believe at a 0. Because they got more stuff that they went down so many stairs. They fell down so many stairs. So that just means more to listen to for me. I'm like, all right, let's hear it. Tell me.
I love it. So Liz, how's Alex feeling about jumping in? Is that because she was the late entry? She was the late roster.
She is. Well, I think it's very cathartic.
Oh, boom. Full circle.
Our words,
hell yeah.
Our vocabulary
That's our word
of
That's
the night.
Word of the night.
I think for her, it is very healing to have a place where she can kind of talk about things that she's passionate about. And we're excited to record and have, I think the thing we're most excited about is doing, like Joey was asking about, like, questions for us, whether it's like our journey or specific for her or specific for me, because she said, I would have given anything to have heard a podcast where somebody was like me, because she said when she was trying to figure out what to do, she Googled everything. Wow. Person who loves God, who's getting married to man and wants to end marriage, thinks they're gay. Like, she could not find one person that represented what she was going through. And so that made her feel even more isolated. that made her question everything that she was doing. And I mean, of course, she was in therapy, and that definitely helped. And her friends just kind of looking at her saying, like, you may not marry this person. Like, you cannot do this. She was looking for something to, you know, some kind of representation where she could see herself in somebody else that's already walked that journey.
Yeah.
And there are so many more people like her out there. And so if people can hear her side, you know, a lot of times people, they go through with it and they do get married, and then they get divorced, or they get married and they choose to stay married, you know, whatever their choices are. But there are so many more people out there that have the exact same scenario where they can't figure out what they should do. Do they have to choose being, you know, a Christian, or choose being this person that she was willing to make herself small to not hurt other people? She didn't want to hurt this guy because he was a great guy. And she was like, he's my best friend. If I was going to marry anybody, it would be him. But like Stoy was saying, when that sexual attraction's not there, it's like, that's not what marriage is. That's a best friendship. But then there's kids involved, and it just happens so often, and more people need to talk about it. Just like any other hot topic where, you know, they say don't talk about, you know, politics or religion. We're now talking about all the things, and this is one of the things that people need to talk about, because they get themselves in situations where they feel like they can't get out, and they can, and they just need to know that it's okay. Somebody needs to tell you it's okay. That's not just a therapist. Somebody that says, I've been there, I've done that. It sucks, but you're making the right choice. So for her, she's like really excited, I think, to try and be a voice for those people, and then also just be able to be a voice for anybody that's in that community that wants to ask questions, especially being a professional. You know, she's a lawyer. There's fear in, you know, saying my wife when she's at work. So I think that there's a lot of good stuff there for her that she's excited about being like a voice for.
It's a redemptive part of her story. You know how Stoy is talking about that hard time, that suffering, that feels real bad, but then there's a good on the other side.
And she wants to help. It's like when you go through that shit, you need to then help.
It calls her to do beautiful work.
It's definitely something. It's like you just went through hell, and you want to make it easier for somebody else.
Exactly.
That's having to go through it.
That's God.
Oh, loving it.
One more thing. I don't know how much time y'all got, but I want to say this from what Liz just said. Not just saying that it's okay to feel how you feel. Also, I would like to expand on that and say you get more out of, like, say kids are involved. You have kids that experience, if you abbreviate what you're given to them, you're abbreviating what they're allowed to, how far they can grow. So like when I got divorced, me and my ex-wife brought our kids, we went to a park. I'm not saying this is right for everybody, but if you put the relationship in the right place, the kids get the most from it. If you leave it in the abbreviated state, they're only getting 75% or whatever percent that's not you being all of yourself. So the message,
so you're already diminishing what they could be getting.
Exactly. So if you're thinking in the mindset of just it's okay to go this route, no, it's the best way, because it's allowing everything to get the most from whatever it is. I can't give you 100% if I'm at 80. It's not possible. And I'm at 80 if I'm not being myself. So if myself is not connected to this person, I'm abbreviating it. Kids being involved or being hurt as long as I stay connected to them.
100%.
And 100% is what you always want to give. So the closer you can get to being exactly who you are, that's when you're giving kids the most of what they can get. Otherwise, you're abbreviating it. It's not okay. You're hurting them. You're not hurting them. You're just abbreviating what they can be, or the potential of what they can gain from your relationships.
Yeah.
So I just want the most out of everything.
Yeah. Do you and Robbie live in the same? Are you in Dallas or Houston?
No, I'm in Austin.
You're in Austin. Have you and Robbie met?
No, not face to face.
Okay, gotcha. And did you work with Robbie, Liz?
Yes.
Okay.
At the church?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I worked with him before I knew him before he was on staff at Seacoast, but then I worked with him when he was on staff. When I left, he was still on staff.
Gotcha. Yeah. So he and I become pretty close because we stay connected we do some Marco Poloing back and forth. So talking about it's
he's such a cool guy.
What a spirit, man. What a spirit.
He's a good spirit.
Yeah, he
he's
is.
He's one of those people. I see his light immediately.
It's instant.
Like,
it's instant.
As soon as he speak, I can see his light. I'm like
okay. If there's chaos or tragedy, I want to be around him. Like he's a very calm natured person, and he's the one that I would probably go find if shit was going down.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. This will be where we can tie this up. It's something we've been going for a while. The apocalypse is coming. I say it's imminent. Who are the two people on the host team you're taking with you to survive, to do the apocalypse? Yours are pretty easy. I mean, you got to take your wife, Liz.
Yeah, I'll take my wife for sure. I would take the wife and Matt.
Oh, explain.
I don't know.
Does she want to know more from him?
I feel like he would have things to tell me to make me, whether or not we would survive, I'm not sure. But I feel like the things that he would tell me would probably calm me down in some way, shape, or form. Or I would be able to convince myself everything's okay. He would tell me the truth. I don't feel like he would be like telling me things that would sound good to make me feel like everything was going to be okay.
Would the truth matter with everybody else gone?
Here's the thing. If the apocalypse comes, y'all, I want to be the first one. I'm like, take me as tribute. Like, I don't want to live through that shit. Like, I will be the first one that says, you can shoot me down. I'll become the zombie, whatever it has to be. Like, I don't want to live through that shit.
Yeah.
But I don't know him very well, but he's very interesting to me, and he seems super smart. And I feel like the stuff that he would say, I would like to hear.
Yeah. How about you, Stoy? It's coming. The zombies are coming, man. They are coming.
I don't know, man.
Nobody's going to take Amy because Stoy says she's fearful.
No, it depends. If does Liz and Alex count as one?
No, you can take just Alex if you wanted to take just Alex.
But I don't know Alex, so that's not fair. But I don't know. I can't peg it because I'm already thinking about what my reasoning would have to be. And I'm thinking about, okay, if everybody gonna die, I need somebody to create more people with. And so that's already
You're trying to create life, and I'm like, just tell me the truth. Yeah. We're gonna die.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, okay, if everybody
I went for the zero, the guy that said zero.
I don't want to stay at zero. I want to create another world, Yeah. So I would say any of the females. I can't peg one. I would take any of one of the females definitely, and then I would probably take Robbie so he could play some music.
Oh yeah,
while
soothing, cathartic.
Yeah, but not. I don't know. I couldn't pick one person or two people because it's everybody brings something to the table that I would benefit from. So yeah. I would just.
Who are you going to take?
This is a simple. I'm going straight tactical here, guys. Straight tactical. So I haven't seen everybody in a foot race, but I'm pretty sure I can outrun Joey and Ellen. So I'm bringing them because the zombies are going to take them first, and I am hauling ass. Hauling ass.
That's a good one.
I like it.
All right, you're going to need this little story of how Hayne has no limits with clowning around and thus offended me with one of his dumbass jokes. And before you listen to, I think it's worth slowing down a bit. Hayne and I are going to talk more about this whole ordeal on our B-Sides feed, really take it to a deeper level, including how him and I would have handled a situation as this. We'll call it a conflict when we were 20 years younger. I'm actually excited to dive deep with this. So not one person on our host team, as you're about to hear, would have been cool with this nonsense had it been their daughter. I bet that would include most of the listeners right now. I bet just hearing this story, many of you now have Hayne in some sort of a box. And I get it. I mean, we all do this or have to fight against it. But here's the deal. I mean, Hayne is one of the most caring, heartfelt guys I know. So the box you have in mind for him, he's likely not in. Haynes said that his wife, Erica, says that he has a strong radar for the line of appropriate with the public, but is always pushing it with close friends. Ding, 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 ding. So is this a blind spot for Hayne? I don't know. But it certainly can't represent the totality of who Hayne is. And I mean, that thought's laughable, right? But that's how a lot of us read into one statement we see in writing or one conversation we hear in a podcast. I mean, come on. And there's more. Probably a month or two after this ordeal, I sent a text to the host team and really hurt my friend Stoy. Was very racially insensitive and not an excuse here, but I just had no idea. Now, I'll certainly call this a blind spot for me, but anyone who knows me, I mean, many of you who've listened to this podcast for a long time, you know that I'm not a racist and would never purposely send anything insensitive. But imagine you've never heard me before, and let's say I'm a guest on a podcast and say something similar according to my blind spot here. Isn't it crazy the world we live in that many would write me off as a bigot, not even questioning whether there's more than meets the ear, I guess, in this case? It's something we've fallen into as a society. People's actions, either good or evil. People, they're good or evil based on those actions. But it's just not that simple. I mean, we're way too complicated for that sort of thing. We actually got together as a host team to talk about this situation with me being hurtful to Stoy and recorded it. This was after, obviously, Stoy and I talked privately. But we'll release this conversation as a bonus to these first 4 episodes of the new era of this podcast.
Let me tell you guys a story of how 2 team members had to work through something. I crashed on Hayne. He said something like, do you need this picture in black and white? And I said, well, there's such thing as filters. I can make it black and white, dummy, or just something like that. The dude sends me a picture of my.
No. You need to. He rips me pretty hard about Apple filters, and he's like, "Hey, look how this works." His color photograph of Gwenny, and he shows it in black and white. He's like hitting me hard. So I take the photo, and what do I do to it, Joey?
He draws a penis next to her mouth.
No.
Terrible.
And I'm like, I'm not like mad at Hayne, but that is very offensive to me. That is my daughter.
Oh,
but
you're a kid? I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So,
I didn't know who the hell you were talking about. So.
Yeah. So as an Enneagram 9, I'm like, I'm not going to say anything right now, but I realize as days went by, this is stuck in my head. I can't get it out. I'm going to eventually have to say something to Hayne. And so Hayne, we worked through this seamlessly there because like I said, I know Hayne's heart, but I had to tell him that it bothered me. And when Hayne brought forth the irony of the actual text message that a grown-ass man had to send to another grown-ass man, we lost it. We can totally talk about this. You're one of my dearest friends. I like to opt first to put into words any offense so that I can articulate accurately and not blindside my pal. And I'm an Enneagram 9, so that's probably another reason I like to write first. But real simple, I didn't like it when you drew a on my daughter's face. It sounds like what a middle schooler would say to another middle schooler about his mom or his girlfriend.
It totally does. We're in our mid-40s writing this stuff back and forth to one another.
That was like really.
I mean, y'all got a laugh out of it?
I was offended.
Joey's like,
but
I'm not laughing.
And I even told Hayne, I said, I don't, Alex and I are still getting to know each other. I said, but I'm not sure if it could have been offensive to her. Come to find out it wasn't. Thanks, Alex, for really loving Gwenny.
Thank you, Alex.
It's actually because I don't check my text messages. Like there's 57 of them in the middle of the workday. I'm just like, okay, bye. So I literally did not see it.
I didn't see it either.
So
who would have been offended if that was their daughter?
I would have lost my mind.
What? Yeah. I mean, I would at my hands.
Dang, Hayne.
I don't have a
wow.
But I wouldn't have liked it.
He doesn't have daughters. He has 2 boys.
That's okay. So I can feel whatever way.
You're going to draw something in front of your boy's face and see how you like it.
Are doppels?
Hayne is full of grace. And so is Joey. Y'all are both graceful toward one another, and that matters.
Oh, thank you, Matt. I appreciate that.
All right, here's my ride or die, Robbie. Our latest draft pick, Alex, who's married to Liz, and Jed Payne, who's also host of Church and Other Drugs podcast.
I'm so bad at adding. Who is the 843694?
That's me.
Okay.
Oh, I don't have anyone's names in my phone, which makes it really fun. I'm like, I don't even know who that is.
Right. I'm missing, I think, one person. We should do another round of place your name in the chat.
Like, I know Joey's phone number and my wife's phone number, and that's about
Right.
it. I'm like,
at least you know your wife's. So.
yeah. But for the longest time, she didn't know mine. Like, it was like super
Oh my gosh.
awkward. She'd always be like, "What's your phone number again?" I'm like, "Biatch, really?"
Hey, so you had no idea who reached out to you with an apology for drawing a penis on my daughter's face?
No, when I saw the penis part, I was like, this has to be Hayne. Like, it was
Right,
process
right.
elimination. It was very easy to figure out who that was.
Right.
Jed, you missed out on that one. You will soon be able to answer this with actually having a kid. But I took a little poll with everybody that was on the call last week and basically asked how many people would be offended if, even a close friend sent you a picture of your daughter with a penis up to her mouth, and everybody raised their hand.
Yeah.
I was like, I felt like vindicated
Wait.
to some degree.
A real penis?
A drawing one.
Well, you just said all you said was if they send you a picture of your daughter with a penis up to her mouth.
Fair.
And you
Fair.
like, what am I supposed
Gotcha.
to think there, Joey?
Gotcha.
A picture.
Like it was in the context of a joke. Like I had just crashed on him, and so that was his retaliatory. But the backstory is I actually was offended, and I wasn't mad at Hayne because I know his heart, and I know that if he knew that would be offensive to me, he wouldn't have done it. But I waited a few days.
Yeah, that's so funny. I just gotta this guy just sent a picture of my daughter with a dick, but
I know his heart. Yeah.
I know
his heart. Apparently,
he's got a good heart.
Man.
He's got a good heart.
Oh my gosh.
He's hanging out with those firemen. They're always doing stuff like that,
Yeah, lots of
them and their calendars.
lots of.
Oh, dang.
Alex, I don't want to start off on the wrong foot here, but I do have
Well,
some
we started
stuff to.
talking about
How could you
penises.
start even
how
worse?
Literally.
I don't want to start off on the wrong foot again.
Joe was like, so Auschwitz, right?
So I've got some beef with your wife.
Oh,
and
don't we all?
Yeah, listening to the conversation with her, Stoy, and Hayne, I was offended on behalf. So I consider your wife one of my closest friends. I was offended on behalf of one of my closest friends who's on this call right now named Robbie. So basically, she was asked of all the guys, who would she consider the most metrosexual? All right, so here's the thing.
Okay.
Is when someone referred to her husband while he was alive as metrosexual, I didn't look it up. I had no idea. So for the last 10 years, I was like, oh, metrosexual. That means Joshua Miller. So whatever Joshua Miller is, that's metrosexual. I didn't know what that meant, but I have told people somehow Joshua was able to have the perfect blend of arrogance and humility, because the dude we'd be working in the office and he would be staring at himself in a mirror. He had just gotten his hair frosted and he's like, man, this looks good.
Yeah.
But he was not arrogant. I know it sounds like he was, but he wasn't. So anyway, Liz, without even hesitating, says Joey. And then this is her reasoning. She podcasted with me and another really good friend of ours, Sarah, and she said that I crossed my legs all the way. So she said, right there, I was going to, he doesn't even go quarter away. He is all full. And I'm like,
that's the benchmark.
Right. So I had to look up metrosexual, and it says a man who lives in urban areas and enjoys shopping, fashion, and similar interests. And I was like, how did my homegirl totally snub my homeboy who is starting a fashion industry? Like, just completely ignored Robbie.
Wait,
Wow.
is that just real?
A fashion industry company?
No, I'm starting the whole industry, actually.
You guys heard of fashion? Robbie started that.
Yeah.
All right, like, how can you be so out of touch that not only do you not know what metrosexual means, but you find out years after it is
no longer
a term. Well, it's not even a term anymore.
Because I use context.
Hey guys,
I use context.
You ever heard
clues.
of the bee's knees? I just found out that, where it came from.
But I use context clues, so I figured it had something to do with fashion, but I just never looked it up. I was like, oh, okay, I guess Joshua, somebody who really cares about hair and all that stuff. I mean, I literally make text message or phone calls with Robbie checking in saying, hey, I'm about to do a wedding. Does this match? And
Right.
Liz says me over Robbie. That's got to make Robbie feel bad, man.
It just means that you're really fashionable. You know, that's how people associate you, Joey.
No way Liz thinks I'm fashionable. There's no way.
It's purely the leg crossing thing. I think that's
that was the one.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's no other characteristic that I
love
think
it.
get out of that.
All righty, folks. Now, some of you regular listeners who are interested in diving deeper with us may enjoy having private access to some more content. Some of it, in my opinion, even better than what's on the main feed. Now, we'd love for you to check it out. I refer to it as
Joey, you're doing a lot of talking, man. Listen, y'all. Check it, everyone. If y'all want more of this, get that beat. Check the show notes and let's go.
Here are some clips of what's been going on the B-Sides feed through the last 6 months or so.
Alan, are you worried about Quincy's soul?
Oh, no.
But have you been?
No.
Quincy, you think that he used to be afraid?
Yeah.
All right.
And that ignorance can only be destroyed by the power of a living God.
So I watched the movie Till recently on the tragic story of Emmett Till.
So they eventually literally had a TikTok intervention sit down with me. And even at the time, I actually was in denial. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, I'm overdoing it and it's causing these things with you. Like,
I do not believe that 2023 white Americans should pay for the discrimination of the past. I think it's inhumane to hold someone hostage for the sins of another.
When we think of the people who have influenced us, we usually don't think of their public achievements or their distinctive teachings. Instead, we remember stories that illustrate the impact someone had on our lives.
My wife calls me a music snob. I used to be, not anymore. But given my intertwining my life with indie music and love for hip-hop, you could imagine how excited I was to discover an underground hip-hop scene.
But I'm without a doubt a concern for the more fundamental staffers over there, I'm sure. But I do believe God's will for all of us is to be on the other side of that unrest at some point. Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers. So we can fight for what's right with a peaceful, restful spirit, knowing we are no better than the ones who anger us.
I am a full leg crosser as well. It's the bane of having long legs.
Oh, it just
not
feels good. It
your
feels
leg will
good.
fall asleep.
And then,
how tall are you, Joey?
And then if 6'2".
Expound on that, Joey. How does that feel good?
Yeah,
it's just comfortable,
How,
and I
though?
feel.
Explain this to me as a woman who has nothing.
I know what you guys are
dangling
going
between my
towards.
legs.
I know what you guys are going
It's
towards.
like a little hug, you know?
Where
It's
do
just
you,
like a little.
like, do you have to position
no,
yourself?
everything
first?
is safe and tucked away, and
Yes,
I'm crossed.
But I will say, if you're used to this sitting position, it does come inconvenient when you have to sit down and you have to pee. It's very convenient because you're already in that position.
Right.
You're already there.
Yeah.
Jed, you don't really know these two that well, right? Because you've missed a couple of meetings.
No, I don't. Yeah, so I didn't want to be rude
It's cool.
if I don't remember.
Actually just
but I don't.
came up off the street. No one knows me.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
So have
Joey
you-
said he saw this woman that looked pretty down on her luck.
Right.
On the way to the
I-
play. He was like, "Hey, do you want to come podcast?"
Oh my God.
Dressed as a hobo. It's just exactly who I
And she
am.
happens to be a very successful lawyer, so
Yeah.
I thought she was a hobo. I thought she was.
You are the one that is with child. Is that correct?
Yes, but so my wife is Liz Miller, and then I have a kiddo in my belly currently. So yay!
Yes.
So cool.
My fiance has a kid in her belly.
Right on #science for I guess for both of us, but more
Right.
science for me. Like
I didn't even think to ask this. How far along are both of you? Like, are these babies going to be born in close
Our
proximity?
date is November 12th.
second way, mine's November 30th.
Whoa!
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
That is
Do you
pretty
know
cool.
if you're having a boy or a girl yet?
We are gonna find out the day of.
No way.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
this whole science route, we got to choose. Like I had all the lineup, and I got to choose like the strongest one. And I had a dude who's just a strong dude. So here we are.
this is like both our first kids, and we're later, like we're older too. So it's like same deal where it's like, I was kind of like, maybe not kids. That's fine. And then like, just kidding. Yeah, we're doing it. We were going to find out. And then my fiance, someone told her that it was like Christmas morning times 1,000. So I was like,
yeah, my parents did that too, which is funny because literally my name is Alexandra Jordan Ginsburg. And I was like, well, what if I was a boy? Thinking they'd be like super creative.
Right.
And they're like, it would have been Alexander Jordan Ginsburg. I'm like, okay, great, guys.
That's awesome. I definitely could not wait to find out the day of. I don't know. For some reason that just feels like a lot.
We did that with Rosa, and it was the most unbelievable thing because I don't know what it was about Priscilla and I, but we were for sure that this was William. Like we just knew it was a boy. I bought a journal, your typical bluish green book, obviously gender stereotype. And we referred to her baby as William. It was William this, William that. So when Rosa came out and they said it is a girl, I was like, my, I mean, just mind blown. I mean, it was so awesome. Like the irony of thinking one thing the whole time. And I really don't know why we were so sure. We just were. And
it feels like a boy also.
Well, the same thing for us too, with our first child too. Yeah. Like we didn't even know that we were pregnant until almost 3 months in. So that was kind of crazy. We went to the hospital for the first ultrasound and she was like 11 and a half weeks.
At least, so what I've heard, at least she got to skip because there was a lot of worry. Right. We had a miscarriage back in last September.
Yeah, sorry.
So there was a lot of thank you. But it's like, this is what is it called? A rainbow?
Yeah,
rainbow baby.
Yeah.
But I've talked to other people that they found out at 3 months and they're like, whew, okay, good.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have to have that.
Exactly. But we went in saying that Adelina was a boy for sure. And the nurse was like, do you want us to tell you the sex of the baby? And we were like, well, we know it's a boy, so it's not. And she said, well, she might get offended if you keep calling her a boy. We're like, we're having a girl.
That's awesome.
I'm down in Louisiana. I've asked all my Cajun superstitions. Somebody asked me if my teeth have been hurting. And I was like, actually, yeah. And they're like, it's a boy. And I was like,
okay. That's so stupid. The carrying high and the carrying low and all that. Here's my theory is 50% of the time you're right. And so see, I told you to carry high. It's this. And then the other 50%, it's, it's not right all the time.
Right. Exactly.
No, I think it's a bunch of shit. They're like the high and the low. I'm like, no, it's a burrito. Like, joke's on you guys. That's from my lunch earlier today.
Hey, well, I want to ask Alex some questions. And I think that all of us listening and then giving input, what I would love to hear come out is just a bit how all of our faith has changed or not so much in general. But obviously, this is a big one. I think I'm speaking correctly when I would say that all four of us probably came from similar belief backgrounds when it comes to being gay, right or wrong. And Alex, I reached out to you earlier today just to make sure I wasn't catching you off guard. And I figured, your answer, that's what I figured is, it's a green light. You're wanting to speak very openly. I thought it was remarkable what you said the other night, that when you were going through all of this and breaking off an engagement with a man and all of that, you Googled and could not find any resource of anyone who had walked those shoes. That's just mind-boggling.
It was, I think, one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life, because it wasn't just like a coming out story. Some people are like, hey, I'm gay, I'm gonna go live my life. It was, oh my gosh, I'm about to get married to my dude best friend in 5 months, but I can't do it. I just can't do it. And honestly, it got to the point where I live in Johns Island, and there, I was out driving on River Road, and I just thought to myself, it might be easier if I get in a car accident and die. It just, instead of breaking up my family, instead of hurting him, and his two daughters, who I love so much, that's where I was at that point. Yeah. And so when it actually happened, which it was funny because we actually got in a fight, and he ended up coming home and he was just like, Alex, I think you're gay. And I'm like, yeah, I think I am. It was, because I've always been open about my heart, and I always thought I just played for both teams. But he came home and he was like, Alex, I think you're gay. And I just was like, yeah, I think you're right. And calling off a wedding and then starting that whole bit, I just remember being like on my bathroom floor, like pills in hand, being like, please someone like show me that this is okay. Like that I'm not ruining everyone's life, that I'm not ruining my life, that everyone's going to be all right. And I just couldn't find a single thing. And it was just the most loneliest thing ever. And the unfortunate thing is there's so many people that are like me and that have gone through something like that, that they just want someone to say, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be better tomorrow.
Yeah. And you and Liz are obviously going to be telling y'all's story that goes back to that time, I'm sure, and well beyond. I want to ask you this, and this I'm a big boy, so I can handle it. I'm sure y'all talked about the people she knew, and you talked about the people you like. There was a lot of talk of people that you were going to meet, and Liz's background and her church background and all of that. But this is a conversation that I keep alive with Liz because I care about her so much. Like, how did it feel for you that Liz was very close to Priscilla and I, who are still a part of a church, not necessarily specifically Seacoast. That just happens to be her context because that is the community that she was super close to. But that church and the belief system of evangelicalism as a whole, there would be a limit to her involvement and her serving, etc., which means for Liz, that can't be my community. When I totally understand that. But how did that sit with you? Just the newness of that story, and then, actually meeting Priscilla and I, and, was that mixed emotions, or how'd you process all that?
Yeah, I mean, meeting all of like Liz's close friends has always been a fun thing, but also very difficult, but not in the sense that you would think it is, not because of the religious aspect of it. Mostly it's been because of y'all's connection with Joshua and like, how do I fit in with that?
Yeah.
Not even necessarily like, how is the church going to feel about me? Because I was raised Catholic. So, if there's anything that's like, don't be gay, I mean, like, I've heard it all. So that doesn't bother me. I think with y'all, I knew that, you've gone through a lot of growth with her past relationship, and that, as you said before about Haynes' heart, but I feel like I knew y'all's heart before I even walked in to this. Yeah. And I think if I didn't, maybe if you were going through some of the things that you did in her past relationship, maybe that would have changed things. But
sure.
You guys already did the work at that point. So it didn't necessarily bother me.
Yeah. And real quick, for our listeners' sake, Alex is referring to the girl that Liz dated for a very long time. And honestly, through, of course, Liz, but then even some deeper, heartfelt conversations with her ex-girlfriend, like basically that was actually a turning point for me. Was this girl sought the Lord just as much as I did, or even more, and was like, I am comfortable with this and I feel like at peace. And I was like, how dare I say, well, your peace from God is wrong? Am I hearing you correctly then, Alex, that you're able to, I think I'm stating the obvious, but the nuance of Joey and Priscilla, just because they're a part of a church community that as a whole, obviously we're not the only exceptions. There's many people at Seacoast that are gay affirming, but you're able to deal with the nuance of that's not how we are, but for various thousands of reasons, we still choose this to be our community. Like, that's just something that you can grapple with.
Yeah, I don't think it's one or the other. You know what I mean? Because I wouldn't want someone to be like that with me, of like, well, you're like this, but I can't be involved with you. So for me, I take it by like a person by person basis. I found community in church too. And, honestly, even when I was struggling with figuring myself out, I went to an evangelical church that I knew for a fact was not gay affirming. And here I am struggling with whether or not I'm gay, So I think it's a person by person basis. And I'm not going to alienate people because they find community in something, but they do have the same beliefs as me, or at least affirming of me. I'm not going to alienate people like that, because if that's the case, then I would have alienated myself a long time ago when I didn't even know about any of this. I would have, cast myself away. And that's just not
Right.
That's also just not how Jesus works. So
Yeah, for sure. I want to ask you, Robbie and Jed, something real quick, but I will say, and I think it's important to, at least it's important for me in my heart that, just one example of why Seacoast can remain a home for me. And it happened this Sunday, and these things happen sometimes. I'm like, gosh, it blows my mind. I'm like, okay, that's why I'm here. So first of all, the founding pastor, he knows my views on the LGBTQ community, and we've gone back and forth, and there never was well, you're wrong and I'm right, and this conversation's over. It was an open-ended conversation. But we literally talked the other day, and he said that everybody needs to learn some theological humility.
Right.
And I just love
That's
that
great.
phrase, theological humility, and basically him saying, who on earth can truly say that they know infinite God? Once we get to a place where we do feel that we've figured God out, we shut ourselves off to other people who are seeing God in different ways. And it's like, of course, we're all seeing God in different ways. God's infinite and we're finite, and we can't see the complete picture. And that doesn't mean that I'm not saying, well, your truth is right. If, I know some people believe in that, but I think that sounds kind of weird. Your truth is your truth. My truth is my truth. I do believe that there's truth. But when it comes to God, I think we have to be very, very humble with what we say for certain. In fact, I don't know if I have any certainties. I believe 99% that God exists. I believe 99% that God loves me. Outside of that, I don't have too many certainties. But, Jed and Robbie, touch on anything. But I did want to ask you guys, how do y'all feel about churches who, there are some churches that are homophobic. They say horribly hurtful things. They're prideful and arrogant, and they honestly just need to shut up. Like, it's so frustrating. But then you have churches who, at the end of the day, behind closed doors, they'd say in a heartbeat, I wish these scriptures weren't in the Bible. It just seems like it's a clear deal. And I want to love my gay brother and sister, but I have to be faithful to God's word. And that's their approach. And I've heard so many Christians that they even say that with angst. They don't like it. They wish that stuff wasn't there. I don't know if God has given me an element of grace and patience along this lines, but I think more than anything, it goes back to the fact that I lived the majority of my Christian life just like that. And I know people can maybe doubt the credibility of my sincere love for gay people, but the cliche statement, I had gay friends that I dearly loved. And if they point blank asked me, do you think living a gay lifestyle is a sin? I would have had to tell them what I thought the truth was. So I just have so much understanding for people who are still there. And I hate that tension in my heart, because I also hate how it hurts people that I love too.
Yeah. I was just going to say, thank you, Alex, for sharing that. I know that that's not always easy in non-welcoming communities. And so thank you so much. I appreciate that. And
thanks.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, Joey, as you were sharing that last piece, it made me think about when I first went to my undergrad, to college. I was so sheltered. And I had no idea. Like, there were so many experiences that were shocking to me as a Christian. And I think we're seeing the same kind of reaction right now as I was going through back then. I remember, I grew up as a PK, grew up going to church, very specific Black church, culturally, very specific style. When I went to college, it was like the first time I met Christians that cussed, And I was like, when did Christians cuss? And like back then, if you would have asked me, I would have probably said, oh, they're probably not actually Christians. Or, met Christians that partied or got drunk or whatever. And it was just like, oh yeah, they're probably not actually Christians, or all these things met different denominations. And it was just, I think everything was just so shocking to me because of differences. Like you're saying, theological humility, I think that's so important. I think that as we walk through life, we start to expand the experiences not only that we go through, but also listening and to the experiences that other people go to as well, in the context of God, Jesus, his love for us, and what does that actually mean? And I've seen that, so much in churches over the years too, and I'm seeing it a lot now. I remember when we did like a mental health conference some years ago, I want to say like 6-7 years ago, and call it prophetic or whatever, like I just felt that there was about to be a time where churches were going to start talking about homosexuality, LGBTQ, and it was about to be real bad. And I remember telling a couple people that. I said, there's going to be a bunch of pastors that are going to start talking about it, and they've never actually met anyone, walked with anyone, and they're just going to start talking about it. It's about to get real bad. But the light at the end of the tunnel is that hopefully as it starts getting out there, it'll start shaping up to not necessarily the people who are toxic, but it'll open up the conversation to some more healthy voices, as I actually consider this conversation as one of the more healthy conversations, that it's not mutually exclusive, you know, your faith and sexuality and all of that. And so all that to say, like I've seen it, I've experienced it. I've seen people suffer and struggle through that. And I think one thing that has been hard for me and my family is simply just inviting friends to church. You know, like if you've got a gay friend and you want to invite them to church, you know that something might be said that may not only offend them, but also crush them. And is that the point? You know, for the church, I'm like, is this the goal that you're trying to accomplish? I go back to thinking, like, how would Jesus interact with his child? And I just don't feel like it would match up.
Yeah, no, that I loved all. I've got a ton about it too. Like, and I recently, in a nutshell, I know enough that I don't know anything. Don't know anything. And I talked to my buddy Derek Grosskirth, Truth Seeker, this like Christian mystic dude the other day. He just simply, you know, because he's into crystals and all this stuff, and the most hate he gets is from Christians. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. You know, how do you deal with that? And he was like, look, man, he's like, I don't know, but I judge everything like by their fruits. And I was just like, that's good call. Like, that's what scripture says. Like, so I happen to be the celebrated minority in churches, and that is the drug addict, right? Everybody loves they're widely accepted, and it's the redemption story. And come on, open arms, da 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 da. So it's an interesting dichotomy. I think the Western American church is in the middle of being judged. I don't go to my local church anymore. I watch Greg Boyd, Woodland Hills. That's like the only thing I can get down with right now. You know, I think people are being manipulated into a culture war. I don't think it matters just at all. I think if you took hell off the table, the entire anti-LGBTQ Christian argument loses anything to stand on. Because you take that out of the picture, then like, so what? You know, if it is this whatever, you know, I have my sister's lesbian.
What do you mean by that? That the Christians whose hearts are remotely in the right place as far as really loving, their concern is that gay people will go to hell? Is that what you're saying? If that was off the table, then nobody. Yeah,
that's it.
And this is something that I bring to people's attention. I feel like I'm a liaison between two parties here. The distinguishing factor, the reason why you're celebrated as an addict is Jed Payne does not say I've accepted my drug habits and I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm embracing it. Whereas Alex, who is also sinning according to all of those folks' perspective, she's saying, and this is me. This is I'm embracing it. And that's the line that doesn't work in evangelical circles. And if they truly believe what they believe, I understand that. But I do think it's very ironic, and Liz brings this up all the time. I mean, she would serve in, you know, children's ministry and know some of the other people that were serving were not living godly lives.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. This is like my single, and I can't get over in my head, like, dude, I've sat in church and prayed for like the critical voice to just go away, but I just like can't. It's like the selective sin magnifying glass makes no sense to me. So we're going to exclude gay people, but we're going to have donuts in the foyer and just completely disregard the 60% obese congregation. Yeah. That's no big deal. The congregation that is like widely addicted to greed and money, we're going to ignore that. The most thing that Jesus talked about, love of money, the biggest thing, we're just going to brush that out.
Or how about all the prideful pastors who are arrogant as hell?
Oh my God. The celebrity. Yeah.
That right there is, wait a second. We're listening to this person who is about as arrogant as they freaking get. And we just disregard it.
And it's just like, I mean, and you can go back to like Martin Luther, like during that time, they had like monastic prostitutes to take care of the needs of the men. And that was just how it was. It's just stupid. I think it's just dumb. And I think it's like, I do think, I guess saying it's dumb is pretty like simplistic, but it's like, well, I think we're barking up the wrong tree. I think it's like, I don't think that is any sort of hill to die on, because it's like, so freaking what, like none of us are able to, if I'll bite and I'll say that, okay, you think it's a sin, you think people are indulging in their sin, okay, so what? We're doing this on a computer that was made by slave labor. We're indulging in sin,
right?
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's why like selective morality makes me mad too. And because it's like, it's really hard in a consumerist culture. Can't really get away from these things. All right, well, let's just go back to like, okay, what are the fruit? Like, what are the fruits? Like, let's chase what is true, what is lovely, what is precious, what is bringing people together, and we'll leave the sin judgment to God.
I agree. Let's just seek God together. Let's just call it. Let's just call it there. Let's seek God together.
Yeah, I think that a lot of ministries are, number one, just afraid to say, I don't know. I think a lot of pastors are afraid to say, I don't know about things. And the scary part is that, especially spiritual leaders and public figures and big group figures, they're voices that command large groups of people. A lot of people are making up their decisions. They're deciding on things based off of the opinion of the person that they follow. I think especially with like big church now, it's just become such a bandwagon. It's a bandwagon issue. But it can also kind of go into a place of manipulation. It can be spiritual manipulation as well. I think if, we're not really careful.
Maybe unintentional too.
Yeah, I completely believe that a lot of people are unintentionally diving into areas where they shouldn't. If you're gay and you're a part of the congregation, you're not allowed to serve. You're not allowed to be, to do all these different things. But if you're heterosexual and you're sleeping around,
you can do whatever you want.
You are allowed to do all of that.
Just don't tell anybody. Just don't tell anybody.
Yeah, just don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody about it, and everything's okay. So, yeah, I think that there's definitely just such an imbalance there, and it can get really, really hairy. It's much easier to talk to the LGBTQ issue than it is about some of the other issues because other churches have been on that wagon. I think
the one person I keep pointing back to who's like, man, that dude's doing it right, is like Francis Chan got so popular that he straight noped out of America. He was like, well, God is calling me overseas now. And like, he's not even here anymore. Like, that's how, you know what I mean? It's like, wow, dude, that's how his little house churches, once they got to 25, they had to split off and start another one. There's like a certain size he would get. I like that. And anything when it becomes business minded and like you have to be careful. Kind of at my church, like when some things were happening, I asked my pastor, I was like, hey, are you going to like talk about this stuff like from the pulpit? And he was just kind of like, it's about like reaching the new person. And I was like, okay. So it's in my mind, it's like, are we worried about some bottom lines here? There's a huge part of me that wishes I could go back into the Matrix because like, it was so comfortable when I was so certain. And it's, thanks to bad Christians. So appreciate it, Joey.
I got you, dog.
Feeling like a ship tossed by the waves is scary as hell, man. And and that part of that makes me feel like, ooh, was some of this cult-like? Because it's like, I feel like I'm on the outs now. And there is a feeling of isolation that I don't enjoy. But it's also, I feel like I'm too awoken to like go back into it.
There's an end to it.
I don't know.
I can almost promise you there's an end to the unsettledness of it. I really do. I really do believe that.
Okay, I hope so.
I want to say something about Francis Chan. Then I want to ask Alex something. I don't have anything against Francis Chan, but I do want to say, yes, you could applaud him, but also let's remember he's able to walk away from a huge church and still have an ass load of money coming in from videos. Like it's not like he turned his back on money,
And I love him too. I love him, but I was thinking the exact same thing. Yeah. So
Alex, when it comes, I really appreciate what you said. I mean, just as your friend, that's helpful for me to hear as far as your journey of not ever having known Joshua, and obviously that's your kid's father, Is that something that you think is more of a deal that you're just having to process on your own, or do people say things unintentionally that feed some of that? And even me, like, do people that love you say things unintentionally that kind of sets that off, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's people are doing things intentionally thing. I think I honestly stepped into some really big shoes, which it makes me happy to know that my wife had an amazing husband and my kids had an amazing father. Like, that's fantastic. I'm so glad that he was there. I'm the first person to celebrate him. I still am. I still encourage it. I want my kids to know where they came from, what's in their heart, that kind of stuff. I think for me, it's sort of like my journey, sort of a lot of people, in Liz's life, of course, were in Joshua's life. And so I sometimes feel like I'm jumping into the party a little late, where it's like, remember this time with Joshua and blah, blah, blah. And I was probably like 20 and I was not here and I don't know of him and things like that. So for me, that's where it gets a little difficult. It's not anyone being like, how can you fill his shoes? My shoes are different sizes than his. I'm never going to fill his shoes, nor do I want to. Like, that's for my kids, and my wife have a special relationship with him that I'm never going to be a part of. And I'm okay with that. That's not why I'm in Liz's life. That's not why I'm in my kids' lives. And thankfully, no one has ever said, you're not going to live up to him. You're not like Joshua. Like, obviously, I'm not like Joshua. Like, check out my boobs. Like, this is not like, like.
I also don't see you staring in a mirror being like, I really like these highlights.
I don't have that much confidence in myself, honestly, to do that. It's funny, though. I have heard that we're similar in a lot of things, which is kind of cool. But I think it's like my own little personal journey that I have to go through of like, I just need to know that, people's relationships with my wife have revolved around someone that was very special to her that's no longer here. I think the hardest part for me is like just being the type of person I am. Is I've told her, when I'm holding her while she's crying, when it's March 18th, when he passed, like that I would switch any day if I could.
I just want to say, I don't know if I've told you this straight up or not, but I mean, it brings me just so much joy to see Liz happy, and then obviously Liz is happy because of someone super wonderful.
Well, thanks. Don't say this shit to me. I'm pregnant. I'm already emotional. Like
I know.
Like I'll cry at like a U.S. Postal Service commercial right now, like just for no reason.
I actually, I'm going to keep going, Alex. No, I actually have a letter that I wrote to you probably a year ago, and I still have not sent it to you.
Wow.
Not because it's anything bad. It's actually a very heartfelt, positive thing, but I'm just like, I don't know if Alex wants to.
Oh, no. I love stuff like that. I'm such a sap.
Here are some clips of what's been going on the B-Sides feed the last 6 months or so.
That was good.
Thank you, Stoy. Joey's like, cut. He's like, it's time.